One faithful makes a decision about the traitor's seduction, while the other faithfuls finally get the answer to a day one suspicion. As we left off in episode 5, Brooke and Dan decided to seduce and chose Robbie. Robbie accepted their invitation as she was already being portrayed in the role anyway. I just don't feel it was the right move for her. Even though she has no idea of Brooke and Dan's true intention, Robbie did pose the question of whether she was chosen to be banished.
My only concern is that, I think I'm up for banishment. Am I brought in here to be banished?
If she was already questioning it, then I still don't get why she thought it was the best move to become a traitor. Did she really believe she could escape being banished despite her being suspected since day one? I know she survived until now, but I feel like she's always been on borrowed time. She would need to do some serious pieces of manipulation to have a chance, but I don't see that happening. And as this episode proved, Robbie never had a chance. Whatever Sam's suspicion about Brooke was the previous day, that seems to have gone. Maybe his thoughts were purely based on the anger from the previous mission, but at breakfast Sam told Brooke he thinks he's faithful. I thought the fallout of the previous mission would have more of a domino effect, but it seems to have been put to one side. It's no secret Dan has been weary of Dylan, and this episode is proving to be the one where Dylan is starting to put the pieces together. Noticing how quiet Dan is playing things and stating that if he was a traitor, he would play it that way too. Also, with his first experience of riding in a car with Brooke, Dylan's noticing Brooke's pushy nature in conversation, and it's now starting to make Dylan suspicious of Brooke.
If I'm losing these missions, someone's going to say, why isn't Brooke getting murdered?
Why is Brooke acting like he hasn't had access to the armory? He's been in there more than once. Dan, Robbie, Justine, and Sam want access to the armory, with Robbie finding the shield. While it's useless to Robbie due to her new role as a traitor, like Philly, Robbie found herself being banished after finding it. King's name was floating around throughout the day. I thought him running around the groups of people before banishment saying he's faithful was a little scattered, but no one seemed to mention it. When Kings asked why his name came up, Anna and Julia were very quiet. Anna, in particular, was a surprise, seeing she was the main one that voiced his name earlier in the day. Justine was the only one answering Kings. We don't know if that was just the edit or Anna actually said something. It's quite something to be throwing someone's name around and then you don't give them the courtesy of defending themselves from your reasons. As it was mentioned, how can you defend yourself as a faithful when there's no actual reasoning behind the accusations? Brooke and Dan made it pretty clear at the round table that Robbie was a consideration for their vote, going full steam ahead with the plan they devised before the seduction. Anna was the outlier by voting for Kings while everyone else voted for Robbie. That death stare by Robbie might have just ended up being the downfall for Dan in this game. Anna noticed it and promptly told Brooke, Julia and Sam, while Dan was playing it off in another section of the hotel with Colin, Justine and Vanda. Dan will have a lot of work to do in order to maintain his status in the game. The first part will be who he and Brooke end up murdering. Anna, Dylan and Justine are the candidates for murder. While all three are dangerous in the game, I feel Anna or Dylan would be the best targets. Getting rid of Anna will probably help Dan, but she hasn't said anything about voting for Dan. She's only mentioned what she saw at the round table, so she may continue her crusade against Kings. Dylan is the target that helps both Brooke and Dan, and I firmly believe that if still in the game, Dylan would vote for either Brooke or Dan at the next banishment vote. We were left with the door to the conclave opening as they sealed the letter, but we don't know what it is that could be in store for Brooke and Dan. Click for more content about the traitors.